Smith Show starts right now.
The Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News, here with you for the next hour. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. Credit Karma, K-A-R-M-A. Get knowing. Plus, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Protecting your small business is a very big deal. Cover what you've worked so hard for. Visit progressivecommercial.com. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Any moment now, we'll be on with the great Adam Schefter, who will come on and talk to us about an abundance of NFL news that has taken place over the last several days or so. So looking forward to having that conversation with him. He'll be on the line with us any minute. But until he arrives, is he there? Because I'm seeing, he's there. We don't have to wait. Adam Schefter is there right now. My man, what's going on? How are you?
Stephen A., how are you doing, my friend?
How are you, buddy? How's everything, man? It's always good to talk to you. And by the way, great feature profile on you by Real Sports at HBO. I watched it. I just want to let you know.
Thank you for what it was very humbling. They do a tremendous job, and John Franco and Chapman Downs, the producer, did a great job, and I was flattered and honored to be profiled on a show that I've always watched and always admired.
Well, you definitely deserved it. Make no mistake about it. We're talking to Adam Schefter, the great Adam Schefter, right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. All right, let's get right to some NFL news. You obviously broke it this morning. Kareem Hunt being suspended for 8 games by Commissioner Roger Goodell. Take us through the process that led up to the 8 games as opposed to 6 games or even 10 games or getting suspended for the season. Why did they come with that, or why did they come to the conclusion of an 8-game suspension?
Well, Stephen A., I think that honestly, I had been hearing during the season that it could be 10 to 12 games. And I think what happens here in the course of these discussions is Kareem Hunt went to the league office, sat down with the commissioner. He's been in anger management counseling since the Chiefs released him. He's been in alcohol counseling since the Chiefs released him. He's tried to take the steps that he believed he needed to gain entry back into the league and to have the suspension be as short as possible. And I think in this particular case what happened is, I don't know this. I'm speculating. Being that I kept hearing it's going to be 10 to 12 games, it wouldn't surprise me if during the course of the conversations with Kareem and his legal team, the NFL said, look, we're going to suspend this guy 12 games. And they said, well, we don't think that's fair. We think it should be 4 to 6 games. And they said, well, we don't want to go through this long, drawn-out appeal process and have this be on SportsCenter every single day throughout the spring and summer. What if we come up with a happy medium? NFL's comfortable with 8. Are you comfortable with 8? Yes, we're comfortable with 8. And they come to that so that he doesn't appeal it, which he's not. And everybody just goes on. They turn the page. The NFL announces it on a Friday in the busiest week of the league year when the college basketball is on ESPN round the clock, and everybody just wants to move on from it. It's hard to forget the images of Kareem Hunt pushing and shoving a woman. Mm-hmm. And you always have to wonder about her and how she's doing, and it will always be a part of his resume and his character. And I think he's tried to grow from that, and you hope that the woman is okay from that. But the league felt like with his cooperation in this case and him not appealing, my guess is that it was going to be longer. And with the lack of appeal, everybody was good on signing off at 8.
Did the NFL reach the conclusion that he may have been a bit inebriated? He had been drinking at that particular moment in time when this all happened?
I don't know that they reached that conclusion, but I think that it's fair to say, Stephen A., whether it was that night or the other two incidents that he was involved in, because keep in mind there were three separate incidents that the league looked into, investigated, reviewed documents for, interviewed witnesses. There were three incidents over the course of a calendar year that involved Kareem. I think that the league deduced that alcohol played a role in this. How much? I don't know.
Adam
But
Schefter,
it was a part of it. It was a part of it, and that's why he's going through alcohol counseling now.
Adam Schefter, one of the reasons why I'm shocked that it was just 8 games is in this regard. If they're doing their investigation, I'm looking at the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs have basically let it be known that they were lied to, that he lied to their face. And I think that at times that those are the kind of things that ultimately count against you when somebody is trying to make a decision on what level of punishment you deserve. Talk to me about that for a second. Yes.
Yeah, but he paid the price for the lying from the Kansas City Chiefs. That's why when the video surfaced on Friday, November 30th, and it surfaced, if my memory serves me correctly, the video came out about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 5 or 6 that night, he was released.
Yeah.
And the reason he was released was because he lied to the Chiefs. The NFL doesn't factor whether he lied to the Chiefs into its decision about how long Kareem Hunt is going to be disciplined for. They're looking at 3 separate incidents. The Chiefs took the action they did to a certain extent because he lied to them. He wasn't honest to them. And the Chiefs couldn't live with that, with a guy that basically misled his employers. So he was released in Kansas City. And now the NFL conducted its investigation based on the fact that there were 3 separate incidents of violence, alleged violence, of video, of pushing and kicking a woman, of assault, of whatever it may be, alcohol. And so the league determined from those 3 separate investigations that Kareem Hunt deserved an 8-game suspension. Him lying to the Chiefs had nothing to do with the NFL's decision.
Adam Schefter right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. With that being said, what kind of fallout, if any at all, does the NFL anticipate that the NFL may anticipate comes their way in light of the fact that it was just 8 games?
Well, I think you read the comments on social media and you see people saying, oh, Zeke Elliott gets 6 games. There was no video. There was no evidence. Even though people had different suspicions, he got 6 games. There was a clear video for Kareem Hunt. There was a clear video on one incident. There were 2 other incidents. He gets 8 games. Now, I think the one thing that we've seen over time, Stephen A., is that you basically get separate. The league has basically increased its discipline on certain crimes, instances, all those things. And so that's what happens here. And the league is basically not giving the benefit of the doubt to the player anymore, and that's what happened here. And by the way, separate note, the Bucs just agreed to terms with Shaq Barrett on a 1-year deal for $5 million. A small deal, and it's separate, very separate from a very serious conversation, but just got the text and want to share with you.
Understood. I want to transition to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers anyway. That was one of the teams I was going to ask you about.
Well, I was trying to lead you there, Stephen.
Well, I appreciate it. You know, I appreciate it, Adam Schefter. They let go of Deshaun Jackson. Obviously, they moved him on to the Philadelphia Eagles. They didn't want to guarantee him $10 million for this upcoming season. They couldn't reach an agreement. He's happier than ever because he's happy to be back in Philadelphia. What do you anticipate, or what are they telling you about what they want to do in Tampa? And the reason I ask that question is because people look at them and they're struggling with the fact that Bruce Arians comes on board and places so much faith in Jameis Winston when it was clear they looked better with Ryan Fitzpatrick earlier on in the season. Talk to me about what you're hearing about Tampa and what their mindset is.
Well, listen, I think that one of the reasons they hired Bruce Arians is because he believes in Jameis Winston and Jameis Winston believes in Bruce Arians. And they worked together at Bruce Arians' football camp in Alabama back in the day when Jameis was in 8th grade. And there's always been a mutual respect and admiration between those 2 men. And they know that if Jameis Winston gets turned around, and by the way, they believed in him as an organization before they hired Bruce Arians. They believed that he was worth salvaging. They believed that he was worth saving. They believed that he was going to turn it around. And basically, it's a situation that they thought this was the guy that could make Jameis Winston be the best Jameis Winston there could be. And so he goes in as Tampa's quarterback, and they count on him to get the best out of Jameis, and that's where they're at right now.
Staying within the NFC, Adam Schefter, the biggest news arguably of the week was Odell Beckham Jr. Being traded from the New York Giants to the Cleveland Browns. They got a first-round pick, a third-round pick, and obviously Jabril Peppers in return, safety Jabril Peppers in return. Talk to us about why the Giants really, really traded Odell Beckham Jr. at this point.
I think it's pretty simple, Stephen A. If we go back to last year, 1 year ago, before the NFL owners' meetings, the Giants made it abundantly clear to other teams that basically Odell Beckham Jr. was for sale, and that if anybody wanted to give them 2 first-round picks, they were going to move them. Nobody at that time was willing to give them 2 ones, and so they held on to him. And they saw the way that he interacted with their new coach, Pat Shurmur, the way he was a good citizen at a time when many people were staying away from off-season programs and mini camps. He came in. He was on his best behavior last summer and got the new deal that he wanted and craved. And then after that, there were instances where I think the Giants were unhappy. And I go back to the interview he did where he wondered aloud whether he wanted to play in New York, questioned the offense, questioned the quarterback, got hurt again, team didn't win, team produced as much without him as it did with him. And I think the Giants just got right back to the same place they were 1 year ago, where they said, we're probably better off without him than we are with him. That's what they believe. Now, we're going to find out whether or not they're right. And it seems like all of New York can't stand Dave Gettleman over this trade. And everybody in New York is baffled as to why they would do it. Now, I understand why they would move on. I would just say this to you. I'm surprised they did this trade now, early in March, rather than a week from now, 2 weeks from now, right before the draft. Because I can tell you for a fact that there were other teams out there that made what they thought were better offers than the Giants. And so what was the rush to take a 1 and a 3 and Jabril Peppers on March 12th, as opposed to getting even more, if they could, on April 12th? That's the one thing that I'm confused by, but I don't think there was any doubt that the Giants were open to moving on from Odell Beckham Jr. When the calls came in this offseason, and they did, make no mistake about it, the Giants listened to every one of them. And they never said to anybody that called, we're not trading that guy. We're not dealing him. If a team called the Giants today for Saquon Barkley, what would be the Giants' reaction?
Please.
Now, you tell me.
They probably hang up on him.
So why did they engage multiple teams over and over throughout the course of this offseason?
But that's where I'm going, Adam. That's where I'm going.
And I don't believe that they initiated those calls ever. I really don't. But there were teams calling them. And as I said this week on SportsCenter, they were not shopping Odell Beckham Jr., but they absolutely were listening on Odell Beckham Jr. And the Cleveland Browns came along, and I think that those conversations started long before this week. And we can even go back to as recently as last week when the two sides agreed to trade Kevin Zeiler for Olivier Vernon.
Right.
And there were ongoing talks between the Browns and Giants that resulted in the trade this week that I think all of New York hated.
Adam Schefter, no one is more equipped to answer this next question than you. I threw this out. I didn't speak to anybody. Pure speculation, just based on looking at the tea leaves and watching the NFL and thinking about what the relationship is with Eli Manning, the 37-year-old quarterback, 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback for the New York Giants, who clearly is not what he used to be, but his relationship with the New York Giants. If Eli Manning wanted Odell Beckham Jr. with the Giants, is Odell Beckham Jr. a Cleveland Brown today?
Yeah, I don't think that matters.
Okay.
I really don't. I don't think that factors into this. Do you think that Eli Manning has the kind of personality that he would go to the front office and say, "I want this guy dealt," or "I want this guy"?
No. That's not what I'm accused. That's not what I'm. I did not say that at all. I'm not accusing Eli of that. I'm simply I'm going in reverse. I'm saying if Eli Manning sat up there and said, "This guy is important to me. He's valuable to me. I don't want him going anywhere," would the Giants have made that move? That's what I'm asking.
Number one, that would be an un-Eli thing for him to do.
Fair enough.
Number two, he just wouldn't do that. Eli Manning is a pro, I believe, who stays in his lane. He's not telling the front office what to do and what not to do, just like Tom Brady is not doing that in New England. He's not going into Bill Belichick and say, "Boy, I really want another wide receiver. Why didn't you trade for Odell Beckham Jr. here?" Mm-hmm. He's not saying, "Boy, get rid of Chris Hogan. He struggled this year." Like, that's not happening. So I think now, that's not true of every quarterback, okay?
I know.
But those guys, I believe, are pros who stay in their lane and know their place, okay? And different people have different approaches to different ideas like that. And I don't think Eli would ever do that. And even if he did, I don't think that they would listen. I think that Dave Gettleman and John Mara and Pat Shurmur, they would do what's best for the Giants, no matter what their quarterback thought. Now, if Eli Manning went to them during the season this year and said, "Hey, guys, God, it's tough out here. Like, we don't got enough receivers. Can we get some help? You got, hey, Eli, we're going to try to help you." But they would be smart enough to recognize what he knows.
Adam Schefter right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Let me transition to the AFC, Adam Schefter, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, because their best wide receiver, Antonio Brown, is now an Oakland Raider. Mm-hmm. Their best running back, Le'Veon Bell, is now a New York Jet. When you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, particularly considering what you just said about Eli Manning, how are we all to look at that situation in Pittsburgh, particularly as it pertains to Big Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin, in light of Jesse James going to Detroit, speaking out against the team in terms of its dysfunctional tendencies, Le'Veon Bell sitting out last season, we know why, Antonio Brown creating the ruckus he created to get up out of Pittsburgh. How are we supposed to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers today?
Well, I think they are at an interesting point in their history. It's a situation where basically, and I'm just dealing with a lot of different things here, Stephen. I apologize.
Don't worry about it. I understand.
So I think that 1 year ago, this team was built around Ben Roethlisberger, the Killer Bees, Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. Now, the two best playmakers in your team are in separate places. And I think if your team and the two best playmakers on your team won out and wind up in different places, I think that merits discussion and scrutiny and questioning within to say, why did our guys want out? Why do they not want to be here? What's going on? What's wrong? What do we need to address and fix? And if they're not thinking of self-scouting and self-criticism, they're not operating honestly and transparently, because clearly there are issues and there's something wrong when two guys want out like that. Now, I'm not excusing Antonio Brown for what he did in the final week going AWOL, and Le'Veon Bell probably should have taken that deal when it was offered. But there was such animosity that built up with the way the offensive line talked about Le'Veon Bell, between Antonio Brown and Ben Roethlisberger. Who knows who's right and who's wrong? But the one thing that I can say is wrong is what was going on in Pittsburgh with the culture. That seems to be wrong. There seems to be something wrong. And by the way, they lose Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, and they lose Jesse James to Detroit. And oh, by the way, we got a situation where they also lost one of the best offensive line coaches in the game, Mike Munchak, who left to go take a similar job in Denver. And yes, he's got a daughter who lives out there, and yes, it's easier for his family, but he still left when he'd been in Pittsburgh for a while. So it's just interesting that they're in a spot where so many people did leave, so many key people, and they've got some excellent people that they'll now be leaning on. James Conner's a great running back. Juju Smith-Schuster's a great receiver. No team has done a better job than the Steelers at uncovering talent at wide receiver in the mid-rounds of the draft. Every year they seem to find somebody. They're amazing at that. but they've got some real issues that they got to figure out there.
Before I let you get on out of here, look at Le'Veon Bell, going back to him in New York. He wanted to basically change the market. He didn't want to be paid as a running back. He wanted to be recognized as an all-purpose back that did dual things in terms of running and catching the football. And he definitely was looking for more than $16 million a year. He ends up with $35 million guaranteed, a $52.5 million deal. He's still being paid less than Todd Gurley. He winning all of this in the end? Le'Veon Bell, was it worth it in the eyes of NFL officials?
Listen, I think the simple-minded approach is to say, oh, you lost out on that money, and you'll never get back that $14.5 million. And there's an element of truth to that.
Right.
But who knows what drives a guy, right? Like, if he had played last year, who's to say that Pittsburgh wouldn't have run him into the ground? He wouldn't have had 400 more carries. He might have gotten an ACL. Who knows what happened for $14.5 million? Then he wouldn't have gotten the $35 million guaranteed this offseason. Were the numbers better from Pittsburgh on the deal they offered last year than the deal? Yes, they were. Okay? Mm-hmm. Should he have taken it? Probably. But he said he doesn't regret it. Now, is he being proud? I'm sure there's no element of truth to that. But how do we know? You know what? He didn't want to go back there. How do we know that he didn't want to play behind the offensive line that kind of mocked him? How do we know that there weren't other issues? Everybody gets to do what they want with their life.
Right. Last question. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's what he chose.
Last question for you. Switching to the draft. Is it a foregone conclusion that Kyler Murray is going to be the number 1 overall pick taken?
You know, I never want to say foregone anything with the draft. Like
okay.
that, you know, that's just a mistake to do that when we are 6 weeks out of the draft. Like, right. Do I think that Kyler Murray is square in the conversation for the number 1 pick? Yes. If I had to bet $1 today, would I bet it's Kyler Murray? Yes. Do I think things could? Sure. I mean, but I think right now the breadcrumbs lead us to Kyler Murray at 1. Now, whether that comes off 6 weeks from now, we'll see. But I think that's the way it's tracking right now, and we'll see if Arizona itself comes to that conclusion as well.
Adam Schefter, always appreciate the great work, buddy. Thank you so much for taking time out of your very, very busy schedule to come on the show, buddy.
Got it. Thanks for having me, and have a great weekend.
All right, buddy. You do the same. And say hello to your family. That beautiful, wonderful daughter of yours. What a great girl she is. She is special. Thanks a lot, buddy. You take it easy. All right. The one and only Adam Schefter right here with Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. By the way, if you haven't tried the delicious, high-quality meat from ButcherBox, you're going to be blown away. ButcherBox brings you the meat the way it's meant to be, so you can get all of the benefits you're supposed to get. Unbelievable flavor and unparalleled nutrition. They work closely with the best farms and companies committed to raising animals humanely. From grass-fed beef to free-range orange chicken to wild-caught sockeye salmon from Bristol Bay, Alaska. ButcherBox has over 20 different cuts of meat to choose from with customizable boxes and a variety of other options to choose from. By the way, that was organic chicken, not orange chicken. And ButcherBox comes at an affordable price. With free shipping, you can get a month's worth of the best tasting meat from ButcherBox for less than $6 a meal. ButcherBox is offering my listeners free ground beef for the life of your subscription and $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Don't miss out on a special offer at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's with a PH, not a B.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people!
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram.